Hey, Bill.
And Drake Merritt from Upper Thames, the head brewmaster and co-owner, is joining us tonight. And Drake, welcome to Beers with Bill.
Thank you. Thank you.
For those of you who are just starting to filter in, we're going to start with the Take a Hike. So would you like to talk a little bit about that beer, Drake?
Yeah, sure. It's a double dry hopped pale ale. The direction we were going when we were making that recipe was to do like a New England IPA style. So it's loaded up very similar, but it has a little bit less body and a little bit lighter. The alcohol is still good. It's 6.0. Mosaic and Amarillo hops in it, and just dry hop the hell out of it. So it gives it some nice tropical fruit flavors and still doesn't kill you on the hops with the hop bite. Yeah.
Is it your favorite style?
I love IPAs, yeah. I'm a bit of a hophead. I love all beer styles mostly. Everything except for like saisons and farmhouse styles. It's not really my jam. Everything else it goes down nice. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say IPAs are my favorites.
So as a hophead, what is your favorite combination of hops?
Favorite combination? Mosaic is quickly going to number one on my list. It's just got such nice fruit flavors. So we use that in the Take a Hike. We made a hazy IPA this summer, and we used Mosaic in that one too. A mix of Mosaic and Sabro. And so far, of all the hoppy beers I've made, that one's been my favorite. So I'd say Sabro, Mosaic for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's a move away from the beer that sort of got you introduced to Upper Thames, because they took a look at your white stout, which we're doing a little bit later this evening.
Yeah.
That was kind of the one that gave you your start, was it not?
Yeah. When I had my interview, I brought a can of the white stout to kind of exhibit what I'd done. It was, I guess, sort of my resume. So that was also my project beer. At the end of the brew program at Niagara College, the graduating class puts on a beer festival as their end of year project. And every student gets to design a recipe from beginning to end. And I chose white stout for mine because my friend had brought me a white stout from the States, and it just kind of blew my mind that something that looked like a blonde ale could have so much flavor and be like a stout. So I decided to kind of create my own, and they liked it, so they hired me. And here we are today.
Oh, what can you say? Something like that. That's fantastic. It happened that way. So you gave up a career in kinesiology because that's what you studied at Wilfrid Laurier, right?
Yeah, that's right.
How hard was that decision to make, to like go, I'm going to stop being in kinesiology and I'm going to go to learn how to brew beer?
Yeah, so it wasn't really that tough of a decision, to be honest. I liked kinesiology. I worked with a lot of people recovering from like workplace injuries and car accidents, and it was satisfying to work with those types of people and cases. But I kind of got to a point in the kinesiology career where I didn't really want to choose a different path and further my career. Nothing really took my interest too much, and I just didn't have the same passion that I do about beer. So brewing was fun. Brewing is so much fun, and to do that as my career, like, not really a no-brainer, but it was a little bit of a leap of faith because the craft industry was kind of exploding at the time, and it could take off, like it did and paid off, but it could have gone the other way too and been just a fad and faded out, which didn't happen. But yeah, not really too difficult. I also had my good friend Tyler, which it will be the answer to one of your questions later, I think. So we started homebrewing together, and then we actually went to college together. So that made it a nice transition to go through college with him.
That would be kind of cool, going to college with your best friend, doing what you love. So when you were homebrewing, was there a particular style that you guys favored over any other style?
No, we just tried everything, and we had some good ones, but we had some real blunders too. The one day we just both decided to do a super experimental beer. So Ty made a Thanksgiving beer. He named it Scarborough Fair and put parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme in it. And it turned out okay, but it was really weird. I decided to make a taco beer and I used cumin and chili powder. Nope, that was a dumper. Yeah.
Too much chili powder?
Yeah, too much both. They just don't belong. It's no good.
But isn't that part of the game of home brewing, is to be experimental?
Yeah, it's fun. We made a whole bunch of stuff. We made a barley wine. That was like our second beer that we did as home brewers, was a barley wine, which it was interesting too.
That's an undertaking for your second beer, because barley wines are not necessarily the easiest thing to brew.
No, well, I wouldn't necessarily say it was accurate to barley wine. It was something else, yeah. We'll say that.
So tongue in cheek, because I shared with you last night that my mom would, every time I started a company, would turn to me and go, "Can't you just get a real job like everybody else and work 9 to 5?" So did your mom support you when you made the decision to literally pivot to a completely different new career?
Yep, she was really supportive. My mom and my dad, they encouraged me. They said, "You always land on your feet, so if this is what you want to do, go do it, and we know that you're going to be successful." I got more kickback from, there was one client that I worked with in particular, and she was just so floored. I think that she kind of had developed a bond with me because I saw her like very, very frequently. She said, "You're leaving me for beer?" Yeah, I am.
That was not the reaction you expected, was it?
I had a lot of characters in that field. You see a lot of people from the public, and you see a lot of different types.
That's true. That's true. I saw on an older Facebook post that they were referring to you as the resident mad scientist at Upper Thames Brewing. Where or how do you get your inspiration for the new beers that you do?
So I would say a lot of it comes from just trying different styles of beer. I like to try, like, the crazier the stuff is from other brewers, the more interested I am in it, I think. So I take a lot of inspiration from just different styles that I try and like. We also just do a little bit of, when we have some spare time, which these days is quite a bit less, but my co-brewer, Nigel, and I will just kind of spitball on stuff and try and think of what would be unique to do with beers. So I guess an example would be, last year we did a purple tart sour ale. So kind of like a sour, but a little bit less. So it's just a little bit tart. And then it's like bright purple. It's weird. Naturally dyed with butterfly pea flowers, but it comes out looking really cool. And it's got a bit of a unique flavor too.
Okay. Who was your favorite brewer before you joined up with Upper Thames Brewing?
Right. So I would say that my my roommate and best friend, his name is Tyler Goldhawk. He's just such a good friend, such a fun guy to be around, and I've got a lot of good memories with him. He works for Indie Ale House now in Toronto as one of their main brewers. Yeah, I'd say him. It's a bit of a cop-out answer because it's also
well, we shared a little bit of this last night when we were talking, so
yeah,
I get that. So in the future, because of COVID now, you don't get to try a lot of beers. Where's that inspiration coming from now?
So there's a ton of styles out there that we haven't really tapped into. Like just looking at the BJCP guidelines, there's so many different styles out there just within BJCP, which is not all inclusive either. So there's a lot of that we would love to try. We haven't really dabbled too much in lagering, partly because of equipment limitations. But now that we have our second brew house at the brew pub, we do have a bit more better temperature control with our fermenters. So we have some capability to do some lagering, which could be interesting. Just lots of different ingredients to try. Hop varieties are by the hundreds, and we've probably only used like 15 or so. So there's so much exploring to do there. As I said before, I'm kind of a hophead, so I can make nothing but IPAs all day, and I'd be happy. But obviously, we don't do that because we want to cater to lots of different tastes, different palates, and just have a good variety of different stuff available.
So I haven't been out to the brick house. I was out literally the first month that they were open. They didn't have everything set up yet. So you're now brewing at 2 locations?
Yeah. So we've got our main brewery. We have 2 huge tanks that we can off of, and then a bunch of smaller fermenters on a 4-barrel brew house, and then at the brick house, 2 small fermenters with a 3-barrel brew house. So pretty small in terms of commercial size. We're on the bottom end. Our thing is tiny.
So that must be interesting because that takes a lot of time coordination because you're going to be 2 different locations.
Yeah, scheduling is a bit of a puzzle sometimes, but we get it done.
Yeah, so the day I convince you to do a collab with me, we'll go out to the brick house, right?
Sure. Just be ready to wake up super early. We got to finish brewing by the time people come in.
So it's really early?
What's really early? When we first opened and we hadn't streamlined the process yet, I was waking up at 3:30 to brew for 4 o'clock to be done in time. Yeah, those weren't fun mornings. I'm not really a morning person to begin with. It's gotten better now. We've made some adjustments to the how the kettle was hooked up. It runs off electric, and it was only running at like 33% capability, which obviously made it take a lot longer to get to boil and finish the day. So now I usually start around 5:30, so it's much better.
Yeah, that extra 2 hours is pretty good, eh?
Yeah, I like to sleep.
Apart from COVID, what's been the biggest challenge this year?
That's a tough question. I would say it's probably split between, can it be like not COVID related at all? Because I would say one of the
you pick what you want.
All right, I'm gonna pick 3 different things. COVID's made a lot of fallout for availability of everything, and not just in brewing, like everything, everywhere. So lead times have increased on like getting canning booked, getting supplies, stuff like that, which makes scheduling really difficult. And even when we get lead times estimated, our suppliers are taking longer to get things there, which is really difficult when like we're trying to plan something for one day and everything has to fit together really nicely in order for things to work properly. So I'd say that's one of them. Dealing with LCBO is really difficult a lot of the times. And that's not really just this year thing. That's just like a permanent thing. If you're in the LCBO, your life sucks a lot of the time. Luckily, I don't deal too much with them. Our salesman does more of that work, and Lyndon, his name's Lyndon. He does a really good job with it because I know it's really stressful. It's challenging. We had one issue with them this year with our labeling on the white stout, where we had to last minute make a whole bunch of changes. And we had 8 weeks to make the change, but with the fallout from COVID, like getting the actual labels in was a lead time of 8 weeks, but we also had to get our graphic designer to do the label changes. So we didn't actually have enough time to do it in time for them to get the product to approve us. We managed to crank it out somehow, but them being the LCBO, they said, we asked for an extension. because of the situation. And they said, nope, you need to get it to us this date or too bad. So that can be frustrating. Yeah, the last challenge I would just say is just, this is not just specific to our brewery, but when equipment breaks down, it happens all the time, and it always happens at the worst time. Like if we're doing a triple batch, it'll happen in the beginning of the day when we have to get everything started, and you have to fix things on the fly. So that's one of the challenges that a lot of breweries face, unless you're started off with like a couple $1 million to have top of the line stuff. We didn't.
I get that. The LCBO at the best of times is not fun to work with. I can't imagine what it's like now with COVID and everything that's been going on. Sean Ruby throws a question on there. I don't know if you can answer it or not, but how is the LCBO compared to like working with the beer store?
It's totally different. Beer store is so easy. Since you have to pay to be in the beer store, you basically just choose which ones you want to go into. You pay them their money and you're in. And you get two free brands to go in and 7 free stores. Those are all free. After that, if you want a new brand in there, you have to pay, I don't remember how much it is. And then same thing for more stores. You just pay the money and then you're in. So they're super, super easy to work with, but it comes at a premium. And to be honest, we take our 7 stores and we don't expand beyond that for the beer store because that's not really where the craft demographic is at. Our beer store sales are comparatively by store much less than LCBO, because people that want craft, they go to LCBO. That's where you go, or straight to the brewery.
It's true. Because I told you I'd prompt you as we go along. So we're going to go over to making waves now.
Right on. So this is one of the beers in a series of sour beers, fruited sour beers, that a series called Making Waves. And so this one's blackcurrant, making waves with blackcurrant. We've cycled through a bunch of different fruits just to experiment with different stuff, and it's been super popular. People have really enjoyed the different fruits and sours. What have we done so far? We did blackcurrant. This is our second time doing the blackcurrant because it was really, really popular. We did guava, passion fruit, tangerine, and pomegranate. I think that's the ones that we've done so far. I really love them. It's to me, it's different than a beer. Like, it is beer, but it's not beer because it's got like the fruity aspect. It's a little bit more, to me, like cidery because it's got the sour and tart. They finish really crisp and they just have so much flavor in them. So I really like them. I love them a lot. We try to keep one fruited sour on tap at all times. It's not the easiest thing to do just because we're kettle souring them. So in order to do that, you basically brew the beer into 2 halves. The first half, you do your mash in, you collect the wort into the kettle, and it's basically like a normal brew. And then you, instead of boiling for the full hour, you boil just for 15 minutes, basically to kill any bugs that are in that wort already. And so then you've got a nice clean slate, and you've got your sugary water to develop your sour from. Then you toss the souring pitch that you would use, and you basically let it do its thing. But that process takes 72 hours to complete. So for us, it's really difficult logistically to schedule that in, because typically we're brewing 5 days a week, 3 times per day. And then we need overnight to heat up the water for the next day. So there's not really much room in the schedule to have those. So they're kind of a novelty.
So you're putting fresh fruit in it, right?
Yeah. We get fruit shipped to us. We've got a couple different suppliers that we use, but it comes in a puree, kind of like blended down, and then they sterilize it. However, I don't know how they do that actually, but they package it aseptically and then send it to us in these big shrink. They look kind of like those Sunny D or Capri Sun packs.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we just open the top and add it straight to the fermenter while it's fermenting, and it ferments the sugar out so we don't have bottle bombs. And then, yeah, it's really easy to apply. We did a couple beers when we first started out where we just got the fresh fruit, and Nigel and I processed it ourselves. So one of the ones that we did, we got just so many clementines. I think we got like 20 crates of clementines, and we took a grater, we zested the outside, and then we juiced them all. And it took us about 4 hours to get everything, both of us cranking away at it. And it was not worth it, not even close.
They say once you were done, it was like, I'm not doing that again, right?
Yeah.
What's been the best thing that changed because of COVID for you?
For me, so when we first went into lockdown, we had a ton of people coming in that had never been into the brewery before. And they were basically saying, we want to support local now, now more than ever. So we saw a lot of new faces, and that's always been a key theme in the brewery since it was founded by the original guys. We like to support local as much as we can. We try and source as much local ingredients as we can. We have actually, one of our beers is an Ontario Pale Ale, and we use Ontario grown and malted barley from Barnell, which is up Kingsville way, I think. Kingsville. No, Belleville, that's the one. And then we've got a hop grower that is just about 25 minutes away up in Tavistock. And so we use that malt and those hops to make the OPA. And we do a whole bunch of collaboration too. When we get to the Dark Side Chocolate Stout, there's a lot of collaboration going on around that brew. So I'll get into that a little bit more. But that, I think, would be the biggest thing for me. Just kind of a mentality swaying towards people doing more local and looking out for their community. And that's been really nice.
There is, in Woodstock, there is quite a connection in the local community, because I do know that the coffee roaster, you used his coffee, and when we get to the chocolate stout, you'll talk about habitual chocolates here in town.
Yeah.
And when Kickoff was still running, I actually had Philippe up doing a Scotch tasting with me. We were doing Scotch with chocolate.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he made the trip up to Waterloo. I was impressed. I wasn't sure he'd be willing to do it, but he made the trip up. There was 20 of us. We had a great time.
That's awesome. It feels great.
Yeah, yes, he is.
Yeah,
He's got quite the story, that's for sure. So you've had quite a run since you graduated from the Brewers College in Niagara.
Mm-hmm.
Late 2016. You've gone from being hired as the second brewer because of your white stout, to becoming the head brewer, to then becoming a co-owner at Upper Thames, and just recently you're a new father, the young child in the family. How do you? I said grounded last night. How do you stay sane?
Stay sane.
How do you keep it together? I mean, you've had quite a change. That's a lot of changes in a 4-year period.
Yeah, it's been pretty accelerated. If you would have asked me when I went to school where I would be now, I wouldn't think any of my classmates would be here. And in that respect, I'm really lucky to have landed with the opportunity that I had, starting off with a new brewery. And it was really just luck that one of the founders, who was the brewmaster at the time, decided to take his life in a different direction, and that opened the spot for me and allowed me to fill that role, which I gladly took and basically didn't look back. How do I stay sane? Yeah, there's a lot of challenges when it comes to running the brewery and being an owner. but I like challenge. Yeah, whenever I hit a hurdle, I think I just have this determination where I need to overcome it, and that helps. It also helps that it's beer. Like at the end of the day, I'm making beer, and I get to drink the beer, and I make the beer for other people and watch them sharing the joy. So it helps when it's something that you're passionate about, which I absolutely am. But still, that being said, there's days when it's a bit overwhelming, it gets tough, and I've got a good support system. My wife is very supporting. I've had to sacrifice a lot of time for her to give myself more to the business, to just get things streamlined and get everything up into a spot where it's a bit more self-sufficient and I can take more time off. So there's been that sacrifice. Also, just when I'm overwhelmed and I need someone to lean on, she's there. She's good.
That's good. That's good. You're a hophead. You love IPAs.
Yeah.
Is that the only favorite style of beer you like to brew, or are there other styles you enjoy brewing?
Well, I enjoy brewing all styles. I would say my most favorite style is something I've never done before. Because I like figuring it out. I like seeing how it turns out. And then if there's mistakes in the beer, figuring out how to make them better. So for example, I guess we just came out with a Imperial Stout this year. We've never made one before. And it was it was a bitch to make, but it was really fun to make too. So we were aiming for 8.5%, which we've tried making big beers before, and the highest that we could get was around 7% by naturally brewing beer. And by that I mean just using grain and doing a mash and fermenting it as normal, and then not adding any sugar after the fact to kind of boost the ABV up. So for this Imperial Stout, I didn't want to add sugar to boost it up, because when you do that, it's a simple sugar and it kind of dries the beer out. And I wanted to avoid that because Imperial Stouts are supposed to be super thick, full of body, really sweet. But I wasn't sure how I could get the ABV that high because I hadn't had luck doing it before. So I decided to, so as a kind of prelim, at the brick house, we typically will do 2 batches to fill a fermenter. So my plan for this one was to do 3 batches instead, do the boil a little bit smaller, and instead of running off the wort, the sugary water, instead of collecting all of the sugars that I could out of the grains, I would only run off for about half as much time as I would, and only take the super concentrated sugary water, and then everything that was basically below 13 degrees Plato, which is a bit technical, but 13 degrees Plato is kind of like what some beers start out at. Just basically, I wasted all the rest of the sugar that was in the malt, which felt horrible because I'm a conservationist. I don't like wasting anything. So using that kind of technique, it worked, and it was fun kind of devising that plan. So any stuff like that is really what I like doing. We've got plans to try using Kvike yeast, which is kind of a new thing that's been getting some buzz and some momentum. The cool thing about Kvike yeast is that it doesn't care what temperature it ferments at. And some people are finding it actually, if you ferment it really hot, like 35 degrees Celsius, which is crazy, it actually performs better and makes a better flavor profile. And just for reference, usually ales ferment from like 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. So 35 it's toasty.
35 is pretty hot, yes.
Yeah.
I've got to backtrack a little bit because I missed a couple of questions in the chat line.
Oh, nice.
What is it that governs how sour a beer is when you're doing sour beers?
So there's a lot of things that go on there. I wouldn't consider myself an expert in sours by any means, but the amount of sugar that's in the wort to begin with will contribute to that, because sugar is basically the food that your souring bacteria are going to eat to produce the lactic acid. Usually is the main one. Lactobacillus is the main organism. So if there's more sugar, it can basically eat more and make more of the lactic acid that it produces. So it's similar to yeast. The yeast eats the food. The more food it has, the more alcohol it's going to create. So that's basically the main one. The other thing would be just the length of time that it has to sit on the food and get the job done. The other variable would be what type of souring bacteria that you use. So, for example, lactobacillus is it's the main one that does the majority of the work in most sours. It can only tolerate a certain pH. So as it produces lactic acid, eventually it's going to get to the point where it won't tolerate the pH anymore, and it'll just go dormant. It'll also, it can eat all its food, and then there's only other certain sugars left over that it can't eat. Other bacteria, so if you guys have had any Brett beers, Brettanomyces can eat like everything. We learned that it can even eat lignin, which is a type of sugar that it's basically wood. So if you have it in a barrel, with Brett beer in there, it'll start like eating away at the barrel slowly. So like different strains can get more sour. I know Brett can tolerate lower pHs too.
And then of course, ultimately, have you ever made one that was too sour?
For my taste, no. I like sour. I like extreme. The more flavor, the better for me. So if you ask me, I say no. But the blackcurrant sour that we did last year, it soured down to 3.0 pH. And then the blackcurrant on top of that, blackcurrant's pretty tart, so it added a bit more oomph to it. And there were some people that they were saying like, this is sour. You know, sometimes when you drink something sour and you get that like electric feeling going through your jaw. Yeah, this one had a lot of potency, but I like that. I like feeling uncomfortable when I drink my sours.
That's fair. That's fair. Tell me about Dust to Dawn, the white stout.
Yeah, so that was my project beer, like I said. I think I said the first time I tried a white stout, one of my friends brought it back from the States. He brought back a can, and I tried it, and I was just kind of amazed by it. It looked like a blonde ale or a lager, but it was packed so much flavor in it. And so I tried to recreate my own, and had a lot of fun doing it. It's a bit of a tricky style, because typically stouts, they're dark for one, and they're very thick. So to get something that's similar but looks like a lager or a blonde, you have to do things a bit differently. So I did a lot of research on how I could do that, and basically the colored malts that provide the flavors and the color that stouts are known for, you can't touch them, because then it's not going to be a white stout, obviously. So you can't use any black malts or any like Carafa 2 that we have. So instead, you just basically make your blonde ale recipe, and there's some extra things that you need to add to it to get the stout characteristics that you're looking for. So for the flavors, what we do is we use Habitual Chocolate. They source us some cocoa nibs, and we add that for our chocolate flavor. And then we've got a coffee bean provider that they make us a special coffee bean blend that gets us, the white stout's got a bit of like an Irish cream kind of note to it, and their roast hits those notes really well. So for the flavor, that's what we do for there. And then stouts are also, they're known for having like a thicker mouthfeel and a bit of body. So we adjust our malt bill a little bit to kind of compensate for that. So we add a tiny bit of oats, which just add some protein and thicken things up a little bit. And then we also add in some lactose, which is an unfermentable sugar, and it adds a tiny bit of sweetness, but more so it just thickens the body up and makes things nice and creamy.
So would you drink your white stout warmer or the same as you would drink any other beer for temperature?
I always drink it cold. I would drink it cold because it's got the specialty flavors, but it's not completely like a stout. But you can still taste the beeriness to it, like it kind of a blonde, but it's more like of a desserty beer. And to me, I think colder is probably better. But if it warms up, I'm sure that the aromatics would come out more and still be good. I do say that I do like drinking normal stouts warmer. The Imperial Stout we just did, I poured one yesterday, or a couple days ago, and I didn't get a chance to drink it for a couple hours. So it had warmed up, and when I drank it, I was like, oh my God, this is so much better than cold.
No, because I'm enjoying your Dusted On at cellar temperature.
Yeah.
And I got the cocoa nibs like immediately.
Yeah.
And then the background, I get the Irish cream that came in underneath it.
So did you try it?
Asking.
Did you try it cold too?
I'm gonna throw it in the fridge later if what's left, and I'll try it later tonight.
Okay.
I want to see the difference.
Yeah, let me know how it is.
Yeah.
Compared.
Your friend Tyler, right? Tyler?
Yep.
You went to school with?
Yep.
David threw in a couple of questions here.
David, where's David?
First of all, he wants to know if the two of you have done any collaboration together. And
we haven't yet.
Second part of the question is, when you guys were in school, was it collaborative or competitive?
So professionally, we haven't done a collab yet. And we've only done one collaboration brew in our history. We did a collaboration with Chronicle Brewing, which is a brewery, I think that they're in Bowmanville. They're a video game themed brewery, which is awesome. They've got I didn't actually get a chance to go down to the brewery, but Nigel went down to do the brew, and then they did a brew with us. And he said they had a really cool setup with like a bunch of video games and bar stools, and they have D&D nights, and they've got a cool vibe going. They're a really, really small brewery, but they've got some good beers too. So we haven't done one with Indie, and I think it's just because like we are crazy busy. Not so much with COVID right now because we've built up a good stock of beer and everything's just slowing down. But regularly, our brew house is pretty small. So to service 2 locations, and before COVID, we were in over 100 LCBOs. It's a challenge on such a small brew house. So we don't have much spare time for stuff like that. For the second question, when we were going through school, it was still collaborative, I would say. Yeah. We still homebrewed together. We did a lot of like hazy style IPAs, because that's what we like drinking. And then I suppose, so we had one homebrewing competition with our classmates. So we had some competition in there. And I'll tell you a funny story about the beer that he decided to make. So he decided to try it and do a Gosa. And he found a recipe online that had good reviews. And it was a 5-gallon batch, so like a homebrew size batch, not that big. And Gosas are a bit salty, right? Like a sour salty. So he's about to do the salt addition into the boil, and he shows me how much the recipe called for, and it was an entire cup of salt. And I said, that's a lot of salt, man. He said, that's what the recipe called for, and it had good reviews. So I said, yeah, add it, go for it. And that was a horrible mistake. The beer was so incredibly salty. We ended up calling it Salty Surprise. And Yeah, it was terrible. We made all our friends taste it because it was competition, and they tasted it blind, but everyone hated it. And we, we calculated it out after the fact, and that beer's salt concentration was 2 times as much as ocean water. So yeah, it didn't taste very good at all.
It's one for the record book, right?
Yeah, 1 loss on Ty's end.
What do you see that's new and exciting in the craft beer industry right now?
Yeah, not so much new, but still exciting to me is just the sour scene. When we were talking last night, I was talking about Fairweather, and they came out with a sour that it was a brown sour with cherries, and I'd never had a dark sour before, and it kind of rocked my world. It was such a unique flavor, and like nothing I've ever tasted before, and it was just so good. So that was like a little bit inspiring for me. Going back to your other question, like I would love to do a dark sour in the future, kind of doing something similar to what they did. Yeah, sours have been around for a while, but they're still kind of gaining momentum. People are starting to try them more, and people are getting more experimental with them and doing different things, and there's still lots of stuff that can be done with them. Another trend that's kind of started up is, like I said before, the Kvike yeast beers. So kind of a neat yeast that has some different properties, and like you can just ferment them and not have to worry about controlling the temperature at all. That's cool. You can just leave them out in the middle of summer and let them do their thing.
Well, it would make life easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You guys don't do any open fermentation, do you?
No, we don't. Do you know any breweries that do?
Shortfinger in Waterloo does.
They do.
And there's a couple others, but they elude me right now. I'll wait. Somebody will throw them up in the chat line.
Sawdust does one every year.
Sorry, what was that one?
Sawdust?
Oh, okay.
They make, I can't think of the name of it, but they brew one in the forest every year.
That's pretty cool. I know that Block 3 just got a cool ship too last year. So they do some souring in an open fermenter kind of thing.
So, Upper Thames Brewing was founded on the idea of community, because it was like 3 firefighters that look around and said, this is missing here. We need to do it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Flights and Bites that's coming up next in a week's time.
Yes, it's on Saturday.
Or yes, this Saturday, yeah.
Yeah. So Flights and Bites is an event put on by the United Way, and they do it every year, but this year they can't do it in person and live, so we're doing it over Zoom. And basically, a bunch of people are getting together to sample some different things from around the community. So we're asked and we're involved in that. We're doing 3 or 4 different beers, and some of our food from Brickhouse, and then some other community stuff like Guns Hill is going to be featured there. I think Habitual Chocolate is going to have some of their bars there too. So we're going to do a little bit of a beer pairing with some of the tasty treats. And it's a fundraiser for the United Way. And we're going to be doing it all over Zoom. Yep, so they're going to be sending out these basically community gift baskets to the people that have signed up. And we're going to conference about everything.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, it's my first time doing it, so I don't know too much more about it. But yeah.
Eric will walk you through it.
Yeah, I'm just there for the ride.
Let's talk about the dark side chocolate stout.
Yeah. So the dark side was a recipe made by the original brewmaster. His name was Josh Bowes. We originally called it Come to the Dark Side, a Star Wars reference, but we've kind of rebranded it now, so it's a little bit less copyright. That beer is probably our most collaborative and awarded, I guess. So we submitted it a couple times to the Canadian Brewing Awards, and was it 2017, I think, we won a silver medal for it. And then 2018, we won a bronze. So that was pretty incredible to see. I was really happy with that. I think we all were. In terms of collaboration, so we use some local ingredients to make the beer. Habitual Chocolate, we use their cocoa nibs in that. Basically toss them in secondary and let them age on that for a couple days, and that gives the beer a really nice chocolatey character. And then, so if anyone knows of Guns Hill, their cheesemaker's name's Shep Eselstein. He's just about 10 or 15 minutes outside of Woodstock to the south. He takes a whole bunch of our beer, like 150 liters at a time, and he does a cheese wash on basically a base cheese. He washes it with the chocolate stout, and then it's beer wash cheese, and he calls it Dark Side of the Moo. So there's that collaboration with him. And then I think that, I don't think we've done this for a while, but there was an ice cream maker that was using it to go into her ice cream too. And it's goat's milk ice cream that she blends some of the stout into, and it had a really, really unique flavor. And then on top of that, for a little while, we were doing experiential tourism, basically like a brewery tour, but more catered towards the experience of the person coming in. So we featured the dark side on that tour, and basically what they would do is we had 3 stations set up, one at our grains and mill, and we would basically walk them through tasting the grains and explaining why we use the different ones, the different characteristics of the malt and what it contributes to the beer. And then the second stage of the tour was we hooked up our bottling line to either a keg or the tank, and they got to bottle their own bottle of beer and then create their own label for the beer and stick it on. And it didn't take off too much, to be honest. It was kind of a funny timing, but it was a really unique thing that was kind of fun to do. Mm-hmm.
Got a couple of questions from the chat to throw at you.
Yeah.
What other Ontario craft brewers are you enjoying right now?
What other breweries?
Yeah.
I really love Fairweather. I know a couple of the guys. Actually, not grew up, but one of their brewers, his name's Brent. I played soccer with him when I still lived in Chatham. And I actually went down to visit them about a year and a half ago, and they helped us design and build our current bottling line because they have the exact same one. So they were very helpful in helping us with that, and they did it all. They didn't charge us for any of the consulting fees. They helped us. And that's kind of the way that the craft brewing industry goes. It's more collaborative than, like, it's not a competition between breweries, which is really, really nice. One of the great things about this industry. But their beer is absolutely phenomenal. Everything they make is great. If you guys haven't had it, they're in Hamilton, go check them out because they make some really good stuff. If you're a sour person, their sours are the best. I also really like Collective Arts. Ever since they opened up and they were still doing bottles, I've always liked their branding, and their beer's been great. Everything I try from them is just fantastic. I'd say those are the 2 that stand out the most to me.
David's got an over-the-top question for you.
Okay.
When it comes to naming beers and you straddle that fine line of copyright infringement, what's your strategy? Do you check with an IP lawyer, or do you just ask forgiveness rather than permission?
So we'll do a Google search and see if there's any other beers with the same name. And if there's one that looks like it's legitimate and it comes from a brewery that is gonna give us problems, and we won't name it that. But there's so many craft breweries around, and there's only so many different names that you can come up with them. So there already is a lot of repetition. For example, we've got a milkshake IPA right now that we called Howl to the Moon, and we were gonna name it Howl at the Moon. Well, I wanted to name it Bark at the Moon, like the Aussie song, but obviously probably couldn't do that. So I looked up Howl at the Moon, and there's like 8 different beers named that. And so I just Googled other variations of it and found something that was a bit lesser. But yeah, like there's so much overlap already that it's kind of unavoidable. So our strategy is just name it what we want. And then like most of the new ones are one-off, so they only last for like a month, right? So if someone has a problem with it, they'll contact us. And then if we have to change it, we change it. But more often than, like, we've never had an issue. But if we did, the beer would probably be gone by the time that they found out. We did actually have one issue come up. We were planning to do a New England IPA with some local hops, and we were going to name it Foghorn. And it was like still a month before we were going to even brew the beer. And we got an email from, there's a brewery, I think on the East Coast, called Foghorn. And they gave us a cease and desist, or they were gonna sue us. So it was surprising. Like, I don't know how they even found out that we were planning on making this beer named Foghorn. So we've changed the name to Fogbound and no problems, but it was just kind of strange.
Life can be interesting at times, can't it?
Yeah.
Todd was wondering, is there anything that you've been wanting to brew, but you haven't gotten to it yet?
Haven't gotten to it.
Yeah.
Yep. We haven't really done much lagering at all. I would love to make a Dunkel. I would really love to make a Baltic Porter. And just trying a bunch of stuff with lagering, or like lagered ale kind of stuff, like a Kolsch or a Marzen, stuff like that. That's where I'd like to go. Yeah. It's a bit inhibiting to do lagering because instead of your brew cycle being 3 weeks, your brew cycle is more like 7 weeks, so that it has enough time to mature and clean up all the impurities and ferment it fully. It just takes more time.
If you could go back in time, Drake, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, just get prepared to work your ass off. Brewing's been like a lot of work, especially in a brewery with a small brew house. Just hard work, hard work. It's really satisfying work. Like, I enjoy almost every aspect of my job. There's a couple things that I could probably do without, but yeah, I love it. So I wouldn't tell myself to reconsider. I'd say go for it, but just expect to be exhausted.
Would you have done it sooner?
Would I have done it sooner? If the craft beer scene was where it is now, yes. When I was coming out of university, it wasn't there yet. Craft beer was still not really on the radar. But yeah, if I had the opportunity when I was in my like early 20s to start off in the career that I was gonna finish with, I probably would have, just because I'd be a little bit further ahead in where I want to end up and be a bit closer to retirement and stuff. Yeah, I would. But at the same time, though, I had a lot of good experiences working in kinesiology. I met a lot of people, and it was just a different experience. So I don't know. Giving that up would be, I like having that too. So it's a tough question.
And what would you like everybody to take away from our chat tonight?
Just take away, keep on drinking beer. Yeah, continue supporting local breweries, and local everything. Thanks for being here tonight. I don't recognize any faces, but hello to everybody. Yeah, thanks for trying us, and trying us if you haven't tried us before, and maybe we'll see you again. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Drake, thank you for taking time out of your busy life, because I know with a newborn, time comes at a premium, and totally appreciate you taking time to share your experiences with us.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Yeah. I want to remind everybody next week, Cam Bartel is back. You're welcome to join him and I in having a conversation around the wines. The list went out last night for those who want to try. Apart from that, though, you could always drink your favorite beer from whoever. And then the Christmas party on the 22nd, Graham and I will still be doing a conversation around beer. There'll be more about that next week. We will not be doing it live at the brewery, because with everything that's going on, we figured there's no way that we could predict that at that point in time. And then the very last show of this year, Adam from Bashkang Brewery in the north is going to join us. There'll be more information coming out about that. And I am already booked into the middle of February, just for all of you to know. Thank you for joining in Beers with Bill. Drake, thank you. This has been a pleasure. It's great to chat with you. I hope you stick around a little bit afterwards so that we can all pick your brain a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.